Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well. You are looking absolutely amazing, by the way. Absolutely amazing. And do you know what else is amazing? It's also amazing how the US judicial system works. It bewilders me. It bewilders me. Now, I did a video the other day and it spoke about like premeditation. It was looking at the fact that all of these crimes, each individual attack had been put down as premeditated. And, I've got a huge response to that. But one of the things that kept cropping up, and I have to say I disagree with, and look, this video in general is going to be looking at, obviously, Bryan Kohberger is in court very shortly. We're literally knocking on the door of the courtroom and waiting to see what happened as the defence push for the dismissal of the grand jury indictment. And we're going to talk about whether that's warranted or not, and whether indeed it could happen, because I feel that there is a high probability that this is exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you why. But yeah, so many people, they spoke out and they said, look, premeditation can be something that is decided in seconds. Absolutely, decided in seconds. So he could go in there and he could be doing this crime and something could happen and then he could make a decision to do something. He could make a decision to murder somebody else while he's, while he's in the throes of the crime itself. And I very much dispute that. Because that's not premeditation, that's reactionary. That's in my opinion. And if I was a legal representative for a client, that's exactly what I would push for. Premeditation is something that you are entering into this property to do, because you're not affected by what's going on in the crime itself. Cause and effect. You do something, it causes this, that ends up leading to this. So, for instance, you enter the home in order to attack one person, but you end up walking into a room where somebody else is, and that then causes an argument, and then you have to then attack this second person, and that leads to death. That's not premeditation, that's reactionary, that's cause and effect. So this person here, the first person, which would have potentially been Kaylee, that was not premeditated, that was reactionary. And then because of this has all spilled out into this brawl, if you like, and there's been this huge attack that's roused the people underneath, and then they have come out, and as this person is leaving, they then bump into somebody else, and then they enter into another altercation. Again, that's not premeditation. That is, again, reactionary. The person who is in the throes of this crime is reacting to a situation that has very abruptly occurred, and it's that split second. Now, just because they've had a split second to make a decision, that's not the same as premeditation, because they've in a split second been forced to make a decision. So it's almost like fight or flight. What do? Do I attack? Do I run? And they don't have enough time to properly process what the outcome is going to be, in my opinion. So you can't unless that person has physically entered into that property with the intention of attacking and killing everybody in the house, and that was their intention to do so, then you cannot say that they were all premeditated. So by saying they're all premeditated, in my opinion, means that law enforcement are pushing for the fact that this person entered the house with the intention of killing everybody they came across in that house. Which to me, again, and I've said this before, raises the question as to, if that's the case, then what happened and why didn't it happen? So, as I said, Bryan Kohberger was in court in a few days' time, and there's so many videos that are floating about, and the sad thing is not everybody gets to see videos that are done by decent people. And the downside is as well, is like some decent channels, including my channel, do you know what I mean? Not every single video I do. I've done so many videos that some videos are just me rambling on about my thoughts and feelings. And not everybody sees value in that. Not everybody cares to hear about what my thoughts and feelings are. So I might say something and raise a specific issue about something, or talk about a specific element of the crime which I feel is important, but people don't see it. It's like the channel Get a Clue. Some people don't like the format in what Get a Clue does his videos, so therefore they don't watch his channel. So they miss some vital information, and I do find that frustrating, that some channels do some fantastic work, but the format with which they do it alienates a lot of people who come to this platform to view content. Get a Clue, I think I saw it yesterday, was talking specifically about Bryan Kohberger and details within the PCA that would raise that Bryan Kohberger had spoken to the FBI not once but on 2 separate occasions, seemingly on the phone and in person. But neither of those, or one of those, I can't remember, that it might have been that the transcript of one of the interviews, might have been the phone interview, was available, but the face-to-face interview wasn't. And he was pushing the fact that it does massively seem like law enforcement, in terms of Moscow PD, they weren't at the forefront of this investigation with Bryan Kohberger at all. This was all down to the FBI. There are so many things, by the way, that are not finalised. There are so many people who are looking at the evidence that is out there, and they feel that that is the evidence. And this is scary. It's scary. And this is why I feel that Bryan Kohberger could walk. Because let's look at what we've got. We've got a situation where Bryan Kohberger he's awaiting trial for premeditated murder in the 1st degree ×4, and there's no clear indication of why he's there, how the investigation led them to Bryan Kohberger. And that has got to be acknowledged. Even if, how can I put this? If a layman, if someone who is not completely up to scratch can see that there's an issue here, and they can see it because there's a huge missing proportion of this investigation. And this missing proportion is what keeps getting requested by Ann Taylor and the defence. When they set in a request for discovery, they are requesting discovery because they're looking for the evidence, looking for the information that is pertinent to why the client is sitting in the position that they're in, and that's seemingly missing. Now, we can all, in the general public, say, yeah, but they've got his car on video. And I say again, we've got a car on video. We've got a white Hyundai Elantra on video. Do we have proof that the person who did this crime was driving a white Hyundai Elantra? Because we've got a situation where that white Hyundai Elantra, Bryan Kohberger's, was taken away, tested, and was completely clear of not only DNA evidence, but of the existence of evidence that the car had been cleaned. So for all those people who say, yeah, but it could have had DNA and he's had this amount of time to clean it, but there wasn't evidence of cleaning it. The car was clean of DNA and clean of evidence to say that the car had been cleaned in an attempt to hide evidence. You know, they had the Hoover, they took all that, and I'm guessing there's been nothing come up from that either. The house was tested, his parents' house was tested. People talk about the fact that he was wearing gloves to rummage through the bins and stuff like that, but it's been proven that even that was in accordance with the laws of the area with which Bryan Kohberger's parents lived. They have to specifically segregate the rubbish and package it in its different types of rubbish. And if they don't do that, then they are penalised for it. So that was no more than doing what he had to do. The car situation, let's back up a bit. So we've got the car situation. We don't know whether that's Bryan Kohberger's. We've got a car, but where's the proof that proves that that car was definitely tied in with this crime? Because when you look at the behaviour of that car, that doesn't look like a car that knows where it's going. That looks like a DoorDash or delivery driver that's just driving around, not knowing where it's going. Anyway, I digress. The phone situation. We don't even have the evidence back from the phone pings. So all these people who's still in this mindset that the phone pings pinged and placed him in the area, that's absolutely false. The phone pings don't ping him in the area whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. All they've got is that his phone was turned off between or not transmitting to one of the towers between the hours of 3 and 5 a.m, according to the documentation. So their thought process is that this person is concealing their whereabouts by switching their phone off, but that's not necessarily the case. And we don't have, again, the finalised results from the phone situation. You think to yourself, why don't you? You're a year down the track. So what's going on? What is going on with this phone data? And the only bit of phone data that has seemingly been finalised is the bit where MPD turn around and say, we believe that Bryan Kohberger's phone pinged in the area on the day after the crime took place, but he wasn't in the area. So that's all you've got on the phone data. So what else is there? The car that you're not 100% sure whether it was involved in the crime or not, unless someone can 100% say that the person who did this crime was 100% driving a white Hyundai Elantra. We've been, and I've said this before, we've been conditioned to believe that the killer drove a white Hyundai Elantra, but by design, this crime may not have worked that way. The killer could have not had any connection to that white Hyundai Elantra. I see so many people saying, oh, what, it's a coincidence because Bryan drives a white Hyundai Elantra and whoever did this crime drives a white Hyundai Elantra. Again, you've been conditioned to believe that the killer drives a white Hyundai Elantra, and that's not necessarily the case. So, that leaves us to the knife sheath, because I'm not even going to get into all of the stuff that's been pushed out by legacy media, all the variable types of media that just take a segment of information and just smash it out of the park in some sort of attempt to character assassinate. Do you know what I mean? It's you can't take that into consideration. And what so many people are doing, they're looking at different pieces of information and they're grabbing what's been said by the likes of News Nation or Dateline, and then they're just running with their thoughts and pairing them with this piece of information, like Bryan Kohberger's an incel, for instance, with absolutely no evidence of that. But the knife sheath, again, it was get a clue who was talking specifically about this situation, the IgG data. What Ann Taylor is requesting is the entire process, that entire process that shows how that works. She's not looking for people's names or anything like that. She is looking for details of the process. And they need to be able to do that. They need to be able to show how this process went from start to finish. The chain of command, if you like, the chain of custody on this IgG situation from point A to Z and all the parts in between that led them to there, led them to Bryan Kohberger. And that is a problem. They can't do it. So that knife sheath and that DNA on that knife sheath, that seems to still be the only thing that connects Bryan Kohberger to this crime. But we've got a situation where it would appear that MPD handles this knife sheath and has found nothing, Then all of a sudden, later on down the line, seemingly we then have DNA that belongs to Bryan Kohberger on the knife sheath, but then this convoluted and hidden and very, very murky period of time where you've even had specialists who have come out and questioned it, and then them people who have come out who specialise in this field have then had FBI go out and challenge them. And now if that's not witness tampering, I don't know. And then you find out that not only have MPD claimed that they've spoken with Bryan Kohberger, or it has been claimed that he was interviewed, but then there's no recording of said interview, but the FBI did exactly the same. And we're supposed to be happy and okay as the general public who should be trusting in this process, that everything's been done above board by the book and as it should be. But there's so many things that just don't make sense. Why would you be talking to this person who you believe has committed this heinous act, one of the worst crimes that this place has ever seen, and in fact one of the most heinous crimes of this type that we may ever see, and these people are interviewing him but not recording it? And you've got a DNA chain that you can't show because it's too murky, now it's very clear that the likes of Ann Taylor, who again are around this, and even though she works for the defence, you can't dispute the fact that she has links to the University of Idaho. The same with Judge Judge. Same thing. Now, if Judge John Judge doesn't grab this bull by the horns and start asking some very, very serious questions and forcing people to do what needs to be done, then how can you trust where his, where his allegiance lies? Does his allegiance lie with the course of justice and the acquisition of justice and the right justice, or does it lie with the University of Idaho and their motive, which seems to be money driven? But if everybody's doing exactly as they should be doing around this court, especially Judge John Judge, if he is a straight up man, as straight as an arrow, and I can't see how he can do anything other than dismiss this indictment and revert back to a preliminary hearing. Especially if you're then factoring in things such as the potential leak from the grand jury to the likes of Steve Gonsalves that is then published publicly by Howard Blum. Now, people will turn around and say, but he's lying and this, that and the other. This is a Pulitzer guy, you know, he's not wet behind the ears. He's not a wet brain or anything like that. He knows what he's talking about, and I would imagine that if he's gone public with this piece of information, then there is some truth in it. And that truth has to be taken seriously. It has to be investigated at the very least. Let me know down below. Are we heading towards a revert back to preliminary hearing? Is the whole lot going to get thrown out? That would be a curveball. Or is Idaho just going to dig its heels in? Is Judge John Judge going to just carry on regardless and ignore everything? Let me know down below. I'll catch you all in the next one.